I never imagined my world would twist in such a way. I had always been the reliable one, Margot, the refined school counselor, the woman people came to for advice and calm. For most of my life, I helped young people sort through their chaos. One of them was Lucas. At 15, he was quiet, hesitant, and uncertain. I mentored him through years of hardship, helping him win a community scholarship and get into a decent university. I thought of him almost like a godson. When he left the small town for college in Boston, I felt relief knowing he'd make it out. Now, at 23, he was back in Charleston for the summer. And to my surprise, he wasn't the boy I remembered. His frame was solid now. His jaw sharper. His confidence more grounded. But the most startling thing? The way he looked at me, unapologetic, focused. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was overthinking. That it was loneliness or nostalgia. Playing tricks on me, but it wasn't just me. It was him, too, the way his hand would linger a second too long when passing me a coffee mug, the low timbre of his voice when he called me Miss Margot, drawn out like some private joke. When I invited him to stay a weekend at my cabin in Blue Ridge, I thought nothing of it. His apartment lease hadn't started yet. And besides, I'd always trusted him. Or maybe, deep down, I trusted myself too much. That first night, we ordered Thai food and watched a French drama he'd picked. We sat cross-legged on the floor, sipping wine and laughing at subtitles gone wrong. The mountains were cloaked in mist outside. Inside, our little world felt close, too close. He told me about grad school applications, dating apps, and feeling disconnected. I don't know. It's like I'm always pretending around everyone but you, he said, brushing a curl behind my ear before I even noticed it had fallen. I chuckled nervously. You've always been dramatic. No, you've always seen me, Margot, he said, eyes locked on mine. Even when I didn't want to be seen. That sentence, simple, soft, landed like a rock in still water. Ripples of something I didn't want to name spread through me. I stood, muttering about needing to check if I'd left the kettle on. But that night, sleep didn't come easy. I tossed, turned, replayed his voice, his hands, the quiet tension. The next morning, I brewed coffee, humming to distract myself. Lucas walked into the kitchen with a towel around his shoulders, hair damp, muscles lightly glistening in the sunlight spilling through the window. Morning, he said casually. I blinked, then smiled. Sleep okay? Like a rock. His gaze lingered a little too long. We fell into small talk, errands, the weather, whether he should get a bike to explore the trail nearby. But the undercurrent was electric. Something had shifted, and we both knew it. That afternoon, I was folding laundry in the guest room when Lucas appeared in the doorway, wearing only sweatpants. His skin still held the glow of the sun from a short hike he'd taken. Need a hand? He asked. I shook my head. No, I've got this. He didn't move. You've always taken care of me, Margot, he said, his voice deeper, slower. Let me take care of you now. My heart pounded. Lucas, but he crossed the room. In 2 steps, reaching up to brush my hair behind my ear. You're beautiful, you know. I don't think you hear that enough. I tried to pull back, tried to keep the role I had always played. This isn't right. Then why does it feel so good, he whispered before pressing his lips to mine. It wasn't cautious. It wasn't polite. It was hungry, full of years of emotion I had never dared acknowledge. My hands betrayed me first. They slid up his arms, across his shoulders, drawing him closer as I melted into the kiss. Something shattered. Not in fear, not in shame, yet. In release. When we finally stopped, his eyes burned into mine. Still think I'm just a kid? And I couldn't answer, because I didn't know who I was anymore. We didn't speak after the kiss. Not right away. Lucas and I just stood there, too close, the air heavy with things neither of us dared to say. I turned from him, heart pounding, and focused on folding the last of the towels, as if the act could somehow fold away what had just happened between us. I left the room first, walking into the hallway with careful steps. He didn't follow. I busied myself in the kitchen, wiping down already clean counters, staring out the window at the mountain ridge behind the cabin. Everything outside looked normal. Quiet. Still. Inside, I was a thunderstorm barely held together. When I finally worked up the nerve to look back over my shoulder, Lucas was there, leaning against the doorframe with a mug in his hand, shirtless. Eyes unreadable. Margot, he said, voice even. Are you okay? I nodded slowly, still not meeting his eyes. This shouldn't have happened. His answer came without hesitation. But it did. And I'm not sorry. That hit harder than I expected. I wanted remorse. Some kind of sign that we could rewind, pretend it never happened. But Lucas looked calm. Not smug, not cocky, just settled. As if what had taken place was exactly what he had wanted. And deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around my body. You're not a boy anymore, Whispered, I think you figured that out, he said with a tilt of his head, his smirk faint but cutting. I turned away, focusing on the coffee pot just to anchor myself. My hands shook slightly as I poured, but I didn't say anything else. Neither did he that night, we barely exchanged words. I made dinner. He helped set the table. We ate quietly. No jokes, no teasing, no talk about the hike we'd planned. Every now and then, our eyes met across the table. And every time, I had to look away first. When the dishes were done and the fire was lit again, I sat in the armchair with a book I didn't read. Lucas lounged on the couch, phone in hand, but I could feel his gaze flicking toward me. The air in the cabin was thick, not with tension, exactly, but with some lingering hum that neither of us dared touch again. By morning, he was packed. He stood at the door, backpack slung over one shoulder. I'll call you, he said. I just nodded, still barefoot, still shaken, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over, and I was right. The next week, Lucas's text started small. Made it to the apartment. Got the internship paperwork. Thinking of the cabin. Then, late one night, a message that made my heart trip over itself. Still thinking about the way you taste. I deleted it. Told myself he was just pushing boundaries, trying to relive a fantasy. But when the next message came, I didn't delete it. You didn't stop me. And he was right. I hadn't. Soon, I began noticing things. How I kept glancing at the door when I knew he'd be in town. How I found myself reapplying lipstick before grocery runs, just in case. Then came that weekend, my cousin's retirement party. Lucas's mother was there, catching up with old friends. I was helping clear wine glasses in the dining room when I felt a hand slide around my waist from behind. I froze. Before I could turn around, his lips were on my neck. No one's watching, he whispered. Lucas, I hissed under my breath. Stop. But his hands were already slipping under my blouse. His mouth moved along the curve of my shoulder, hot and urgent. I tried to pull away, I really did. But something inside me gave way. Again, you missed me, he murmured. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That night, he followed me home. I didn't invite him, but I didn't stop him either. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The next morning came draped in silence. I stirred slowly, unsure whether the weight on my chest was guilt or just the aftermath of what had transpired the night before. I found myself in my reading chair, a blanket still clutched to my chest. As if it could shield me from the truth. I'd barely slept, and when I did, it was fragmented, interrupted by flickers of Julian's face, his hands. His voice whispering my name like it meant something far more than it should. He was already awake, standing by the window in just a pair of joggers, sipping coffee like nothing had changed. His hair was tousled, the early sunlight catching the curve of his jaw and bare chest. He looked peaceful. I looked broken. Morning, Camilla, he said without turning around. I murmured something unintelligible and wrapped the blanket tighter around me. We didn't talk about the night before, not directly. Instead, we made coffee, scrambled eggs, and exchanged polite phrases that felt too stiff for two people who had seen each other naked just hours earlier. I tried to talk about the city, about internships he might consider, about my neighbors. Dog who barked at shadows, but between every word, the air buzzed with a quiet tension. His gaze lingered on me too long. My fingers fumbled every time he passed too close. We were pretending, but not very well. He left that evening to return to the guest apartment he'd secured for the rest of the summer. No hugs. No promises. Just a simple, see you soon, and the click of the front door. As the hours passed, I kept replaying everything over in my mind, the kiss, the way my body betrayed the boundaries my mind had upheld for years. For a while, I told myself it was over. That it had been a momentary lapse, a spark in a storm of loneliness. But deep down, I knew better. 3 nights later, he texted me just before midnight, thinking about you again. Still taste the wine on your lips. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering above the keyboard. I typed out a dozen responses, don't do this, we made a mistake, this isn't healthy, and deleted every one of them. Finally, I turned off my phone and went to bed, but sleep never came. The next time I saw Julian, it was at my sister's housewarming party. The place was packed, every room buzzing with conversation and music. I hadn't expected him to be there. He'd come with my nephew and a couple of old friends from high school. When I saw him across the room, my breath caught. He looked stunning, black slacks, crisp button-down shirt rolled at the sleeves, easy grin that drew women like moths to flame. We avoided each other for the first hour. I stayed in the kitchen, refilling drinks and making awkward small talk with coworkers. But eventually, I felt a hand at the small of my back. I turned, and there he was. You look breathtaking, he said, his voice low, almost inaudible. Over the music, Julian, not here, I whispered. Why not, he asked. No one's paying attention. They see us as what we used to be. Exactly, I snapped, turning away, but he gently grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the hallway just outside the kitchen. I can't stop thinking about you, he said. You felt it, too. Don't lie. Before I could respond, he pressed his mouth to mine, fast, hungry, like he'd been starved for the taste of me. I should have pushed him away. God knows I should have screamed. But my body leaned into him. My lips parted. And just like that, I was his again. Afterward, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection in the mirror. My lips were swollen, my chest rising and falling too quickly. I didn't recognize the woman in the glass. I didn't know who she was anymore, and yet, I couldn't stop. I didn't want to. Julian didn't text me for the next few days. He didn't have to. I could feel him in every quiet moment, in every empty room of my house, like the scent of something sweet that lingers long after it's gone. I kept telling myself it would fade, that the pull would weaken with time. But I was lying to myself. The following weekend, he showed up unannounced. I was in the kitchen, making tea, still in my robe, when I heard a knock at the back door. I knew before I even opened it who it was. Julian stood there with 2 coffees and that same crooked smile that had undone me once before. I was in the neighborhood, he said, but we both knew it was a lie. I stared at him for a long moment, then stepped aside to let him in. No words. Just tension. Just silence laced with heat. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee that had already gone lukewarm. I'm leaving in 2 weeks, he said finally. Going back to Boston for work. My stomach dropped. I don't know why. I hadn't planned on him staying. This wasn't supposed to be a forever thing. It was just a mistake. An affair of impulse. That's what I kept telling myself, but when I looked up, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Sadness. Real, raw sadness. I don't want this to end, he whispered, and I couldn't lie to him anymore. Neither do I. He stood slowly, walked around the table, and took my face in his hands. The kiss wasn't rushed this time. It was soft. Tender. Reverent. It was the kiss of a man who wasn't trying to conquer, but trying to remember, trying to make the most of what little time we had left. We didn't speak much after that. He led me to the bedroom, and this time, everything was different. It wasn't frantic. It wasn't reckless. It was slow. Gentle. Deep. We moved like we were memorizing each other's bodies, carving the feeling of skin on skin into the folds of memory so it could never truly be forgotten afterward. We lay there in the soft afternoon light, his head on my chest, his fingers tracing idle circles on my stomach. Camilla, he said quietly, you made me feel more seen in a few weeks than anyone else has in my entire life. Tears welled in my eyes. You reminded me I'm still alive. He looked up at me, smiled that same boyish smile that had once belonged to a student, a family friend. But now he was a man. And I had to let him go. The next morning, he left. No drama. No declarations. Just a quiet kiss at the door and a whispered, take care of yourself. And then he was gone. Days passed. Weeks. I went back to work. The house was quiet again. But I was different. I'd touched something wild and dangerous in myself. Something I hadn't known was still alive. Sometimes, I'd wake up and wonder if it had all been a dream. But then I'd open the drawer by my bed and find the mug he left behind. I never washed it. People still saw me as the composed, put together Camilla. But inside, a storm had passed through me. A storm named Julian, and though he was gone, I didn't feel empty, because for the first time in a long time, I had truly been filled. We sincerely thank you for joining us for today's special story. If you enjoyed it, we kindly encourage you to subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share your reflections in the comments below. Your continued support inspires us to bring you more meaningful and engaging stories every single day. And click on the video above to see more inspiring stories, my dear.